Alrighty. Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana, has been conquered. I really hope these credits actually start soon. Alright, there we go. I was like, come on, man. Okay, so I'm gonna go with a different approach here for my thoughts. Because this particular game has a different, I guess, requirement for me. It's not normal, or it's not the same as how I would go into other games. So it's kind of put me in a awkward position. But I would say overall thoughts. I went into this game with expectations. At bare minimum, I wanted it to be better than Memories of Celceta. And beyond that, I want the sparkle that made Ys Origin great in the 3D games. I also mentioned at the beginning that it's do or die for the franchise. Future games hang in the balance of whether it's worth my time and money. So that presents two big questions for me. Did I enjoy playing this game? And was my experience fun enough to warrant buying and playing Ys 9? When collecting my thoughts on Ys 8, I don't feel enthralled by the game. It's not magical like some games I've played, nor is it inspiring to me. Neither is it mediocre and dull. It sits somewhere above that, in a place where I would consider passable, but not unremarkable. So ultimately, I would say my overall thoughts are Ys 8 is an okay game that doesn't reinvigorate my desire to play Ys games. The gameplay, the story, and the other systems just don't make me want to play more. The game reminds me a lot of Memories of Celceta, which was a low point for me in the series. Ys 8 feels like it provides more of the same when I compare it to Memories of Celceta, and that's a very negative place to be for me. And that essentially just encapsulates everything that I more or less want to say about this game. I've mentioned this a couple of times throughout the playthrough as well, that the 3D Ys games just don't have the same sparkle as the 2D Ys games. The 2D Ys games are very fast-paced, and they have a lot of elements to it where it's simple, but it's also like frantic and hectic. And I don't feel that's in the 3D Ys games. And that's kind of what I want, is more of that frantic aspect that the 2D games kind of gave me. There's also the thing of, this game basically is Memories of Celceta 1.5 or 2.0, however you might want to approach that. And I think for a lot of people, that's really good. If I really liked Memories of Celceta, I would have really liked playing this game because it's more of the same. In most games that I play, that's what I want from my sequels, is more of the same. What I liked from the previous games, I want them to go into the next games. So I think they succeeded in doing that for Ys 8. The only issue is I didn't like Memories of Celceta, and so more of the same is just more of a detriment for me. But it's understandable. I get it. It's just it doesn't work for me. For story, was it satisfying? I'm going to say yes with an asterisk. I think the story had some interesting elements into it, but the way the story is told and the information that you get made a lot of elements of the story not very satisfying and not very interesting. But I feel like there was a nice amount of, I guess, world building or character interactions and growth to kind of move the story forward in the parts that were really nice, that does make it kind of satisfying. I will say that the ending is a little bonkers to me. Like the whole thing was a dream from an Earth goddess, and so she decided to recreate the entire world so that she can just dream again. It's off the wall, to be honest. And then Donna becomes like the goddess of evolution, and it's just like it's cool, but it's out there. It's very, very out there. Did it feel complete? Yeah, I would say it feels complete. It's still kind of out there, but I'll give it that. How was the pacing? The two timeline thing didn't feel good for the pacing. One moment, Adel needs an answer. The next, we're in the past doing some goofy things and planting trees that magically make the present acceptable. This was a weird thing for me because I, I don't think it helps the game when I don't think it helps the game to have two separate timelines that you're moving about, especially when they're not uh, they're not running like parallel to each other, or they're very cohesive. They're all just small like subsections, or at least Donna's portions were small subsections, and they didn't necessarily flow into one another. So there was a bit of jarringness going from Adel's present to some random portion of Donna's life in the past, and it didn't really work for me as well as it should in terms of pacing. But then again, anything that has to do with time travel, you're gonna bust up the pacing somehow. So there you go. Let's see. Thoughts on the story. Can't help but feel like everything happening in Castaway Village is so contrived and not well developed, such as the doctor being a serial killer and the hunts and the raids, and every castaway surviving with no issues on an island with crazy dinosaurs. This part was I really did not like Castaway Village. There was a lot to dislike about Castaway Village. Um, there just could have been so much more. There could have been uh, so much more intrigue and focus on actually building relationships in Castaway Village, watching those Castaway Village relationships crumble as other personalities are entered into the fold, and now we have to cater to separate factions to kind of build a village that works together. And the greatest thing about a Castaway Village is the problems that are surmounted in such a situation. And so when you have the doctor being a serial killer, it's like, wow, this is actually super interesting to explore. But it's resolved so quickly, and there's really no build up to it. There's no like investigation of it. It's just kind of like, we have this serial killer on the loose. Let's worry about it when we find more information. It it just could have. I just think of the potential of a serial killer in the village or outside the village targeting castaways, and it just sounds so interesting to me. It's something that could have lasted multiple hours. That could have been strung along for multiple cycles of gameplay. Um, and it's something that just resonates with me a lot, on how awesome it could have been, because there's so much potential there. And it just felt like it was just done in the simplest way possible, I guess. And that was just disappointing. You think it is best that it has co-op coupled with the fun combat system. Oh yeah, the serial killer. You did not like the whole Castaway Village plot. Felt like it was only a means to get Adel to the island, and that was about it. A way to have a character interaction or a town setting, and the jumping off point. I would agree with that too. It essentially it just the game could have been Castaway Village, and instead it was let's explore an island, I guess, and have Castaway Village be a small satellite to it. The raids and hunts, these are things that I think it. I think the game just didn't approach these in the way that would have been interesting, I suppose. Being raided by primordials, that sounds interesting, but we never actually got any resolution on why we were being raided. And I recognize that the answer to that is, well, they're wild animals. But we also did really silly things to aggravate them, and we never wrapped around to the beginning of, oh my goodness, are we actually causing this problem by being on this island and soaking up all these resources that don't really belong to us? And so we never really had any realization of anything that we were doing wrong, or these hunts that we were going on. Like, are we actually just the cause of this island hating us? Maybe we should start changing ourselves and coexisting with the island rather than just taking from it like humans normally do. So I really didn't like the raid system because it just felt tacked on. There was no narrative development that made them feel like maybe we should do this. It was just like, hey, we added this really cool system where you can do raids and you can do these waves of enemies coming at you, and it's cool. So it's like, okay, system wise, you got this great system, but there's no narrative draw to it that I would have liked. And then every castaway surviving with no issues on the island with crazy dinosaurs. This was just a missed opportunity for me, because I recognize this game is probably like rated T for teen, or what have you. Um and so you probably don't want to be finding like dead bodies on the island or something like that, but it's just another example of how I would have wanted to approach a castaway village like this. It's such a huge missed opportunity to have everybody from the boat be alive in one of the most dangerous places in the entire world. We should have found dead bodies. We should have found people that were really struggling to survive on this island. And instead, we just walked up to someone and was like, "Yeah, I'm just having some tea right here. I've been here for like 6 months, and yeah, I'm just chilling, having some tea. I've killed 6,000 primordials. What have you guys been doing? It's just like, come on, man. Where's the intrigue? Where's the struggle? Where's the problems? There's no problems." To be fair, you think they are a very small team, if you remember correctly. I don't have any comments on that. I can't say anything about that. Instead of Castaway Village, it was a weird Jurassic Park. Yeah, kind of like that, actually. Also, the raids felt like they had no effect, no consequences when not doing them, you think? You think there was a short scene explaining that we were the reason the monsters attacked? I don't remember. I mean, that scene could have been there. A lot of the things that I want to complain about, or have complained about, or even addressed, or like a neutral standpoint. The game has probably explained that stuff and I just don't remember. It's entirely feasible. And I do remember that the not doing the raids has no consequences or anything like that. As in terms of the effect on the village or something like that. But maybe it should. I more emphasis on Castaway Village is where I see the greatest potential for this game. They didn't do that, obviously. I can't help but feel like 3D games just waste your time during the first 40% plus of the game. All Ys games suffer from this, but I feel the 3D ones might be larger issues. So I would say a significant portion of this game just kind of like doesn't mean anything. It takes a really long time for the bulk of the story, for all the plot elements to actually be present, so you can say, okay, this is the story. In my opinion, it is not a story to shipwreck on an island and then say, let's explore the island and find survivors. Like there's no story in that. That's your objective, I guess. But where is the narrative development that's going to make those objectives mean something? And it just takes too long to do that. And then on top of that, as mentioned, like the things that we're doing on the island just don't correlate with Castaway Village at all. And so it just makes everything about being shipwrecked on this island be a completely separate thing that just doesn't mean much, doesn't have any significance to it. And it would have been nice if it did that. The story of this game, like most Ys games, was certainly not a hook for me. I liked aspects with Donna in the past, and I liked the idea of being stranded on a crazy island and doing our best to survive. Unfortunately, the Ys formula is not suited to create an interesting narrative about survival. Aspects like the conflict with Carlin, the nameless serial killer, and the captain's death are examples of big narrative developments that fall flat because there's no real development. The serial killer little subsection was not elaborated on in a way that could have extended its lifespan. Just kind of happened in a really short amount of time, and then we get the captain to die, and it's like, well, yeah, the captain died, but we didn't really do anything with the captain to make us feel sorry for the captain. He was our captain, sure, but we didn't go on any missions with him. They didn't force us to care about the captain, and so I found myself not caring about the captain, and that's where I ended up. And that's actually primarily most of my thoughts on this game. It's because I went into this game with like clear objectives, and I don't necessarily think that this game met those objectives, and so I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about the various aspects of the game that don't resonate with me, because if you've seen me play Ys 7, if you've seen me play Memories of Celceta, those same issues are essentially present here. And I really don't want to repeat myself for 3 games straight. So I highly suggest you just go watch my thoughts videos on those games. If you're interested. But to quickly go through some of the things for gameplay mechanics and design, For cardinal sins, there's a silent protagonist, a really weird silent protagonist, I might add. In Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky, they had an unorthodox silent protagonist in that game. And I think this game takes an approach that's not the same, but like a similar strange aspect to it, where Adel's probably talked more in this game than I've ever heard him talk ever, because he doesn't talk. And so it's really strange to have a silent protagonist and then hear that silent protagonist actually have voiced lines that he actually says to communicate with people. They really should have just went the full way. You know, why stop at where you were at? Give us voiced Adel, you know, silent protagonist. I'm not a fan of silent protagonists. That's a cardinal sin for me. There you go. Backup party members earn less experience, 50% experience. Thankfully, this did not come into play for me because they actually avoided another cardinal sin of forcing me to use certain party members, which I really thought they were going to do, especially after we got Donna in the present time. But I can't say that I was necessarily affected by this because I just didn't like the other character options. And so I was just hoping for a more diverse character options that I never really got. But just give backup party members 100% experience. You know, if I wanted to swap to Hummel at the very end there because I was just like, you know what, let me try some different configurations or something like that, then, you know, I should have been able to do that without having to worry about his level. And all I had to do was worry about his equipment or something like that. There's also escort missions. I'm not a fan of escort missions. This cardinal sin, this might be the first time this cardinal sin has actually shown up on any of my thoughts videos, but escort missions are the bane of all existence, and they should not be in any video games because they are the most infuriating activities to engage in for any game that you're playing out there, because anytime you're escorting somebody, you're just going to get frustrated because the AI or the interactions with the escortee is just not up to standard. In this case, it was the priest lady in a side quest, and she just doesn't run as fast as Adel. And, you know, sure, I guess that kind of makes a lot of sense. Adel's in a seasoned adventurer, and she's just some random nun. But then she, like, rips off her skirt, and she still runs the same speed. So, I don't know. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. When you mention time travel being a thing, you like to think about Dark Chronicle, Dark Cloud 2. I've never played those games. I do own Dark Cloud 1 and 2. And I'd like to play them one day. I should probably work on that. I feel like you split Adel into two things in this game. The new captain that keeps the village safe and happy with his random herbs and ore finding sprees. And the second Adel is a normal adventurer Adel. The sections of the game just feel disconnected, and while Castaway Village part feels a bit forced. I would agree with that as well. I also, when you mentioned that there's like two Adels and one of them is kind of helping keep the village safe and like find things, it's another one of those things where Adel as a character in this game is basically non-existent. Sure, he has some lines, sure he participates in some conversations, but again, he's just a void nothingness. You know what would have made this game super cool is if the main character was Donna and we started in the past, and then these random adventurers, one of them with the red hair, discovered us at this great tree, and you know, maybe our memories are a little fuzzy. You know, I prefer you don't go that route, but you know, if you want to go that route, you can go that route. And then then we're trying to reconstruct what's going on and how the events in the past are affecting the events in the present, and it would have just been so much more interesting. But Adel's the main character of the Ys games because Adel, I guess. I mean, honestly, if Adel just had things to say, you know, if he was actually a character, it might have been fine. You know, they just need to move on from the silent protagonist Adel in the Ys franchise. We're 8 games in, you know. It's time to move on. You said the exact same thing. The Donna parts were your favorite in general, and you could have played the whole game as her. Yeah, I legitimately, it would have been fun. Her play style is incredible. It's also really cool. I really wish that they brought her different styles from the past to the present as well, because I was hoping that I would have the ability to change my damage type with Adel. And when I saw that Donna had that ability, I was like, oh, I can swap out Sahad or Donna and we'll be good. But she didn't have that ability. I was like, missed opportunity. It would have been so cool. Let's see. For miscellaneous sound and music, I think the music in this game is pretty good. You know, I'm going to have to add this to my, level up this playlist listens and give this one a shot, because there's some great tracks. You know, these games in general have some great tracks in them. But I think this one seems to be, a cut above the rest, at least from memory. And we all know my memory is pretty bad, but at least from memory, this one seems much nicer than prior Ys games. And prior Ys games did have some good music in them, so it was cool. For voice acting, some solid voice acting in the game. You know, I don't have much to say about that other than the audio levels on the voice acting are all over the place. Rakata is loud as a suckafu, and Hummel is like whispering at you, and it's insane. I don't know the circumstances of recording the audio lines for the voice actors, but there needed to be some additional engineering going on to get all these audio levels proper. For graphics, it's a 3D Ys game with graphics, and it's made by Falcom, so it's super outdated, but I don't care, so graphics were fine for me. Replay value, I saw some stuff in there about, there being, some replayability and what have you. And sure, I think you can replay this game and you can do some stuff, but I also practically did everything that the game had to offer in my very first try. And so I don't think you necessarily need to play this game and get anything out of it. I don't think that this game will offer any additional story content on a second playthrough to warrant that. And I just wanted to get my playtime, 41:38. Let's see. And if the developer is watching, so regrettably, I would definitely say that I don't necessarily have any interest in purchasing Ys 9 so that I could play it. But I did submit a request for a review copy that hasn't been honored yet. And, if you do want to send me a review copy so that I don't have to buy the game, I will play Ys 9. So there's that. I think just ultimately the Ys games don't... They're okay. I find them to be the type of game where I can play this, I can have a solid time playing it, and I don't necessarily regret playing the game. I liked experiencing the game, but it's not a game that I would go out of my way to play. And I think that's just where I sit with the franchise right now. There's certain games where I look at them and I say, like, I could play this game, like I wouldn't mind playing that game. Or I could play this game, and that game is probably going to be amazing. And Ys is not in the latter camp for me anymore, anyways. It started off strong for me, and it just went downhill from there. But I absolutely hope that the franchise continues to improve as it has. I think there's a lot of people out here that like the Ys franchise, and those people are getting more of the same, which, as mentioned before, that's what I want out of sequels to my games, is more of the same. So while it's a miss for me, it's absolutely on target for all the other people out there who loved prior Ys games and wanted more of that, because that's what Ys 8 is. And I think there are accolades to achieving that for that audience. But yeah, that's that. So I guess just to reiterate my thoughts, the game missed the target for me. I don't dislike the game, but I don't like the game. It's just kind of sitting there in the middle. There's some games that I've played where I just say, I don't regret playing the game, but I don't necessarily recommend that somebody go out there and purchase it and buy this game and feel like they're going to get, a great experience out of it. This one just doesn't do that for me, and so that's how I would project it to somebody. I also would not start with Ys 8 and then go to the previous ones. Also, don't play the Ys games in numerical order. Don't do that as well. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for my thoughts.